Welcome to Silicon Slopes Conversations. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We're here with Josh Baxter, who's the CEO of NetDocuments. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here with everybody, and it's great to see a big turnout.
Very big turnout, and we appreciate everyone for showing up. Okay, so you, in the last Silicon Slopes magazine, penned a really well-written article about the journey of NetDocuments, the ups and downs, and I think that would be a good place for the audience to kind of hear the story of NetDocuments and how your story interlaps with that.
Well, we're super fortunate here on the Wasatch Front or in Silicon Slopes to have had so many big technologies invented here. This is really kind of the birthplace of some amazing things, such as the network operating system or even the word processor. You think back to the 80s, with WordPerfect and Novell, and there's a company that was very very close to those companies called Soft Solutions, and the founders of NetDocuments invented document management for the legal industry back in the late 80s, and they eventually became kind of the powerhouse for storing and organizing and securing documents for law firms. Well, fast forward to the early 90s, and Soft Solutions is sold to WordPerfect and is then sold to Novell, and you had three entrepreneurs in Lee and Ken Duncan and Alvin Tegemulia, who was sitting here on the front row, who were still itching to do something special, and they came together, call it 5 years later in the late 90s, and they started talking about building technology that would deliver documents and allow lawyers to collaborate on documents through the browser. And they didn't say things like let's build cloud technology. They didn't talk about SaaS, but they literally started to invent SaaS technology before that was a thing, essentially in parallel with Salesforce.com. Well, the thing that was interesting about the legal industry is they are incredibly conservative, right? They didn't want to share their content in the cloud. They needed to know that their content was right there on their premises, secured in their own ways with their perimeter and things like that. So there was this long window where there was a big question about whether or not the business would survive even. Stories of Alvin, Ken, and Lee literally mortgaging their homes to just to survive. And even a window around 2004, 2005 where they went to their dozen employees and said, and it was kind of this like, it was truly a family kind of thing. It was like, who can make it another month without a paycheck? And doing things like that to just kind of stretch limited funds while they were getting this business going. Well, fast forward to 2012, 2013, and the legal industry started to realize eventually our content's going to go to the cloud. It was very early, but what happened around then is a couple of really big law firms chose to sign with NetDocuments and store their content in the cloud. And that kind of became a tipping point where more of those big firms were willing to start to put their content in the cloud because of the incredible security story and productivity story that we had been able to deliver on. I shouldn't say we, because I wasn't with the company yet at the time. Fast forward a few more years, and 2017, the company is kind of they finally they're going to make it, right? So they've now got $35 million of revenue. They've got 1,300 customers, ranging from some of the 20 biggest law firms in the world or 200 biggest law firms in the world to some very small law firms, 50 user law firms, 10 user law firms. But still on this trajectory of we're mostly a document management business. The thing that I would say, was the most exciting about, that story is that when that event happened in 2017, where a private equity firm came in and made an investment in the organization, of that original 12 people that I mentioned before, 10 of them were still with the company, and that the idea that they were able to go through this time where Can you go this month without a paycheck, or can I go this month without a paycheck? And they just continued to be so committed to building something special and unique together. And that became, while a core part of our DNA is cloud and being able to build the best cloud infrastructure, being able to deliver technology in ways that nobody in the legal tech industry had before, maybe the most important part of our DNA became that, we're going to lock arms and we're going to do some really hard things together. And being able to keep that going since I joined back in 2017 has maybe been the most important thing to us as a leadership team.
Yeah, that's a very cool story. There's lots of hard conversations in life, like grandma died or your puppy died or you're fired, but can you go a month without a paycheck? It has to be pretty high on the list, right? So kudos to that team and the mental and physical and emotional fortitude they had. So 2017 rolls around, to your point. What made you interested? Why was it the right fit? Why was it the right time? And why did you join?
So I had been part of a company that was with deep roots here on Silicon Slopes, Landesk, Avanti today. It's one of the names up on your wall there. I had been part of the management team that built that business from, call it $60 million revenue to $450 million revenue. And we had an opportunity to sell Landesk in kind of late 2016. It was just a time where I decided, maybe this is a time that I should, just decide what is it that I want to do when I grow up. And, the CEO of Landesk Avanti at the time, Steve Daly, and I are really close friends. I mean, just as close of a mentor / friendship as I've had professionally in my career. And so I was just really transparent with him about what it is I wanted to do, and he knew I wanted to be a CEO. He knew I wanted to kind of be part of an organization that was growing really fast, that was early in terms of reaching its real potential. So we just were, we started talking to, a couple of local businesses, a couple of local investors, but at the same time we were talking to the folks that had just bought Landesk. And they actually said to me, Josh, we think you should join the board at NetDocuments. And so they invited me to a board meeting, and it kind of turned into more of a recruiting pitch than anything. But in that meeting, Alvin described the NetDocuments platform. He described the security, and he described the way that we store content, and the way that we can have this incredibly strong search engine, and the way that we can do things like data sovereignty and a whole bunch of boring things that are really important to law firms. But then he started talking to me about the way that the users, all of the user interfaces interacted with the platform. And in that meeting, I said to Alvin, this company can be Salesforce.com for this industry. We can be Salesforce for the legal tech industry. And in way that only Alvin can, he got physically excited kind of thing, and he just says, yes, that's exactly what we can be. And it was then that I was hooked. It was then that I felt like, it's not that I want to join the board here. I want to be part of taking this company and reaching its potential.
Very interesting. So there's lots of ways that people land CEOs, and in this instance, it was going to be a board member, and then it turned into something more. Very cool. All right, so you're into it many years now, and you guys are big on something you guys call culture of winning together. And so what does that mean for you and your team, and what are the results of that?
Yeah, something that when we talk about it internally, literally one of our company values is winning together, but it's something that I believe is just core to who we are. I think back to that group of a dozen people that did some incredibly hard things and were so resilient. It just created an environment where no matter what the challenge that is in front of us, have a tendency to decide that we're going to go and we're going to tackle it together. We're going to, I've been part of teams where you got people that define success as their own success. And then I've been part of teams that, it's all about like we either win together or we fall on our faces together, but at least we're on our faces together and we had a lot of fun and we worked really hard doing it kind of thing. And that part of our culture has allowed us to, enter new markets, build a bunch of additional products, build some products that didn't work out really well, but then learn from it and go forward in ways that I think, makes us pretty unique.
Yeah. And that's kind of a team buy-in too, right? You can't have any kind of fearless, courageous solo warriors. It's got to be together.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think that you've got to, more than anything, it has to be that like at the stage of hiring, you have to be able to assess, is this person going to bring bring the humility, the desire to win, the willingness to do really hard things that maybe aren't super fun. Maybe we talk about picking up a shovel. Like anybody's got to be able to pick up a shovel, and being able to assess those things in an interview and be able to understand, is that the kind of person that is sitting here in front of me? I think early on was a little bit hard, and we had some misfires, but. What I see now is that our hiring managers, our HR team, our leaders, they're really good at understanding, is this the kind of person that's going to fit in with the NetDocs culture?
Yeah. Okay, so you joined at a time where it was growth time, right? And the fuel was in the car, and it was time to push the gas. So, and you've experienced the growth. How do you manage, plan, forecast that growth? What are some things that have worked out really well? And for those other CEOs and leaders out there, what are some things that didn't work out that you can just tell them not to repeat?
So when I joined, I mentioned that company was just at 35 million of revenue. And 35 million of revenue had really come by being a single product, single market company. And when I say single product, I mean storing and organizing, securing documents. And when I say single market, I mean really a laser focus on the 200 biggest law firms in the United States. But I'm just a believer that oftentimes the answer is in the data, and just really digging in and understanding, kind of trends and things like that. So when I first joined, one of the first things we did is we started digging into our customer base. And what we found were a couple of things that we thought were really powerful. So one, we had been laser focused on the 200 biggest law firms in the country, but we actually had about 1,000 of these much smaller law firms that had come to us because we had a small inside sales organization, but we weren't marketing for them. We weren't going after that customer base. And it's very much an SMB type of business. Well, we started analyzing it, and what we found is that the gross retention, like our ability to keep those customers, was really impressive. Most SMB businesses have gross retention in the low 80s, or oftentimes even in the 70s. Well, we were actually in the low 90s in terms of retaining those really small law firms. And while we were in the high 90s in terms of retaining the biggest customers. But that kind of key indicator of these small law firms, one, they like our technology, two, they stay with us for a really long time, gave us confidence that we could then enter a new market. So one of the first things we did is we said, okay, let's go after some of these new markets. So as we were building out our leadership team, we went and hired somebody who was going to be able to bring scale to our organization and really bring maturity across many markets, selling to small law firms, selling to corporate legal departments, selling to government legal agencies, and being able to go after those big law firms. So just being intentional about the way we built the team and making sure that we had somebody that was going to scale well with the business. So we took a business that was essentially single market, and today we have deep penetration in all of those different markets of the legal industry, and a bunch of other horizontal industries as well. The second thing that we did and then I'm going to come back and tell you some of the failures along the way
Good
here
deal.
in a second too, is we looked at our customer base, and we literally had kind of 96, 97% gross retention for the whole business. And our net retention was also 96, 97%, which is a real problem, right? It means we're not doing any price increases. We've got no products to sell into those customers. These customers love us, but they can't buy anything else from us. So we got really intentional about building out a set of products where in many cases there was pent-up demand. They were looking to buy those solutions. We have a kind of a deep partner, ISV partner ecosystem. We started looking into that ecosystem, understanding which of these businesses could we go acquire that would be just kind of small tech tuck-ins, which of these businesses have technology that maybe it doesn't make sense for us to acquire it, but it makes sense for us to partner with them, maybe even white label their technology and put it into our platform. And then we just have gone on this journey where we are very intentional about understanding the market opportunity, analyzing the market opportunity, understanding how big is the prize, if you will, and then either going and building the technology, acquiring the technology, or integrating it into our platform in ways that we've really enriched our customers' experience. Now, along the way, we've done some things that maybe in hindsight don't make a lot of sense. I mentioned that we entered kind of the small legal industry. Well, that's gone. I mean, knock on wood, like it couldn't have gone better every step of the way. Well, the corporate legal industry was very different. We thought that we can just let's just hire a sales team and just send them after corporate legal departments. Well, it turns out our product market fit wasn't exactly right for that space. And we didn't spend the time to understand that up front. So we kind of spent 2 years, 18 months, 2 years, just kind of not really making any headway there. Then we stepped back and said, wait a minute, what do we need to do to change our product? It wasn't like a full-on rebuild the product. It was just tweak it to kind of pave that last mile of the road for that slightly different market. And then the second thing that happened in that same space was we needed to market different. We needed to attend different events, et cetera. And we, in our original investment case, we didn't plan for that. We just said, we'll just be able to draft on all the success we're having in other places. And in hindsight, if we had really focused on product market fit, spent the dollars on marketing, spent the dollars on building a sophisticated, business case for that market, we would have been 2 years farther ahead in a space where we're winning a ton today. But we probably missed for 2 years.
Gotcha. So it sounds like during that period there was a lot of entrepreneurship, right? A lot of entrepreneurs within the company building new businesses, verticals, and products, which I think would be a pretty fun time if you're the CEO and kind of traffic controller. And with that, with the successes, the ones that hit, and learning from the failures, that attracts attention from investors and equity groups, and that happened recently, right? Warburg Pincus. Can you talk a little bit about that, the timing, and then any kind of little cool tidbits that, from your perspective, that happen in those types of deals?
Yeah. So actually, we've had kind of a couple of chapters along the way. So, 2017, Clear Lake Invest, I joined shortly after. And then in 2019, spring of 2019, a small private equity firm out of Boston, Cove Hill, they just started calling me, and they just wouldn't leave me alone kind of thing. So finally I said, okay, I'll have lunch. And I had lunch with them, and they said to me, Josh, we believe we're different than most private equity firms. And they talked about a couple of things that really stuck with me. So the first was the fund that they invest out of is a 17-year fund. And they want to be able to buy businesses that they would be happy to own forever. And for me, having a financial partner who is really bought into our long-term strategy and is helping us build something really special over a long, long time is maybe the most important thing when I'm choosing a financial sponsor. So they brought that, but then the second thing that they talked about was having some team members who could help us in terms of, they kind of been through this before. They had a couple CFOs on staff. They had a couple of people that have, heads of engineering that had faced some of the challenges we're facing earlier in their careers, and which a whole bunch of private equity firms do that. That's not overly or unique. But what they said is, our goal is to be an invited guest at NetDocuments and at our portfolio companies. And those couple of things really stuck with me. So ultimately, after that lunch and then after a couple more conversations, we decided that we would sell part of the company to Cove Hill and kind of test them on on what they told us. Well, Cove Hill comes in 2019, and they were exactly what they described, right? Focused on the long haul. If we wanted to invest in something that had a 3 or 5 year return, they supported us, which is, a lot of private equity firms, that's not how they operate. And they very much were focused on, let's just grow this business and just turn it into what its potential will allow. So we, from when they came in to early this year, like there was truly this inflection point, and growth started to accelerate. Growth was already accelerating in a pretty big way the first 2 years that I was with NetDocs, but then it kind of ticked up again, when the folks at Cove Hill joined us. So fast forward and get to late 2020, and I'm just taking calls every week from private equity firms, from strategic investors, and ultimately it led to Clear Lake, myself, and Cove Hill sitting together saying, like, what is it we want long term for this business? And it was really easy for me to say, like, we're in the beginning, right? We're growing faster, not only in terms of absolute dollars, but percentage-wise than the company has ever grown before. We're seeing that continue to grow. These new products that we're building are just starting to really get traction. We've entered these new markets. Like, me and the leadership team, we're here. We're in it for the long haul. We want a partner who is in it for the long haul. Well, Cove Hill's already in it, right? They've already said, like, this 17-year fund, we want to stay with you for a long time. But, Clear Lake they've made a lot of money along the way. Right? The value of the business has gone up a long ways. And ultimately they said, we'd love to sell our part of the business. So we spun up a full process. I probably met with 20 different potential investors, some strategic investors, some financial sponsors, along with my CFO. And the two of us told our story just over and over again. And as we told our story, we got more and more excited about the business, of course. And as you can imagine, the business has had this kind of success. Of those original 20, 15 of them came back for a second bite, kind of like, okay, we want to see more. And we ultimately had to say, okay, we're going to cull the herd a little bit. And it was really fortunate for us, because that was a moment when we could say, what kind of partner do we want? Who do we want to lock arms with for the next 5, 6, 7 years? And we culled the herd based on that. And then the next round, we got through a set of meetings with all of the investors, and it was fun because the Friday night after we finished those meetings, my entire management team and I sat together. We had Alvin and Hugo and Dan Houck, our chief product officer, and we walked around the table, and it was just like, okay, if you can only choose one, which one of these folks do you want to be your partner? And as we walked around the room, it was about 70-30 between Warburg and one other investor. And the thing that was fun is the next day, Saturday, so bids were due a week later. Well, the next day was Saturday, and I got a call from the Warburg team and said, hey, we're going to bid today, and we want to have an agreement signed before the bids are due. So it kind of turned into this marathon weekend of bringing back in 2 other potential bidders. And again, this was basically, we got together. Clear Lake said to us, we're happy, the price Warburg's willing to pay, we're happy with. So if you just want to bring back in 2, you choose the 2. So we brought in our 3 favorites, had one last set of meetings with them, and then ultimately ran fast and were able to partner with an organization in Warburg and Cove Hill who we feel like is bought into building NetDocuments for a really long time and continuing to invest in our strategic initiatives and just really becoming that Salesforce.com for the legal industry.
Very cool. Yeah, thanks for going into more detail on that. It's kind of the high stakes of business. Anytime I'm talking to folks from private equity, I always kind of picture them as wolves, right? Really smart wolves. But you guys had the leverage that you knew what you wanted and you knew where you were going. You weren't going to change that, and they had to kind of bend to your will, which is a good position to be in when the wolves are circling in a good way. All right, so with events like that, obviously, like recruiting and hiring people is difficult in any competitive business, and there's only so many qualified folks. Did you find that, like, once the deal was announced and the press was out there, that there was folks that were maybe kicking the tires previously, or just a bunch of net new folks that were now interested?
Yeah, there were a couple of things that happened. So, first, it became this opportunity for us to tell our story locally, and maybe take credit for being, Utah's newest unicorn and things like that, because, NetDocuments had not been well known here in Silicon Slopes. And what we found is by, just starting to tell our story locally, and helping people understand, the rocket ship that we've become, people that, not only people that had, maybe had come before, but had said, oh, I'm not, maybe not now. Those people are coming back, but maybe more importantly, people within maybe, my network. My network was maybe a little bit easier, but maybe, like one of our frontline employees, they're able to tell our story and point to things that are happening locally that somebody can say, oh yeah, I know NetDocuments. Yeah, I want to join that party kind of thing. So, while I've always kind of been a, the results speak for themselves kind of person, as we've gone through this, I've learned that, it's okay to tell your story, because telling your story just helps you kind of create fuel for the next chapter of your story.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're going to open up for Q&A in a couple of minutes. So let's get the microphones and chairs ready. So folks in the audience, have your questions ready. Last question from me is, we're all sick of talking about it, but it's usually an interesting answer. What did you guys do in response to the pandemic from the company side?
I'm equally tired of talking about it, but so literally we're March 12th, call it March 11th, and we had decided that Friday, March 13th, was going to be like our practice day. Everybody's going to work from home, and then we'll decide whether or not we're ready to go. Well, as we all know now, things accelerated. And March 12th was our last day in the office. And everybody went home, and everybody just kept going. The thing that was interesting is, like every business, I mean, I'm sure that a whole bunch of the folks here in the audience did this. Like, we prepared to hunker down, right? We started thinking about things like cash flow and collecting from customers, and what if we have to do a bunch of discounts for customers and things like that. And we modeled out like this, like, here's kind of the maybe there's a little recession, and here's the, things are going to be really bad case. And in hindsight, we were too conservative. Like, I think what a lot of people have probably told you. The good news is our employees, like, they just buckled down and doubled down on NetDocuments, and kind of that win together culture, became together. Even if it kind of became, if we're not together, we're still going to win together. And we've been really fortunate to be able to create opportunities to bring people together, safely along the way and that sort of thing, because being together is still really important. But still kind of manage, people want to work from home more and that sort of thing. Today our office is open, but what that means is if you want to come to the office, you can come to the office. If you don't want to come to the office, you don't have to come to the office. Our thinking is that it's probably going to be something like that for forever. There are certainly days where we say, okay, the entire support team is going to be in, or the entire sales team is going to be in. Our inside sales team is the team that is in the office the very most. For you guys that have inside sales teams, you guys all know, like, there's just real energy of those folks being together every day. So they come to the office a lot, but otherwise it's just kind of function by function, deciding when the right time to be together is.
Very cool. All right, let's bring up your other team members, and you can introduce them, and we'll do a quick little stage crew thing. And
Perfect.
Hi, can you talk about your current geographic footprint with your customers and what your plans are going forward?
Yeah, so we actually have a relatively big global footprint. About 20% of our customers are international. The vast majority of those international customers are in the UK and Australia, Singapore, kind of places that English is the language of business. But we actually went through an exercise over the last 12 to 18 months, I guess, of localizing our product into a number of languages and preparing it so that we can easily localize it into other languages. And we're actually preparing to enter continental Europe right now, and we'll continue to be just really thoughtful about which markets we go into, but we feel like the service we provide is going to reach those other geographies really well.
And just to add to that, we have made a concerted effort in our technology and our platform that we could become an international company with multiple clients, with offices at different parts of the world. We call it the geo-aware storage technology, where firms and corporate legal departments can have offices all over the world, and then by mandate or by compliance, they have to store the data locally, but be able to still search universally across the whole world and let the users not even be concerned about where the data is stored. And that concept of a single search with multiple storage locations, even with on-prem storage locations, as well as the global, geographical locations everywhere by office, is key. And so it's exciting to see that that's really happening.
Hi, I'm not sure who this is for, probably Josh and Claudia, but two quick questions. One, have you started to see a problem with the demographic drought they're talking about and having talent not be available to fill positions? Have you started to look at immigration aspects of that? And then what are you doing now to basically energize your people that are working remotely?
I guess I will start. We have had some looking in terms of the international talent for our locations and the work here. But we actually have really just expanded our footprint across the United States. So we're headquartered obviously here in Silicon Slopes and Lehigh. Josh mentioned just across the parking lot. And the majority of our employees have been sitting here, but at this point, for the U.S. in particular, we've probably increased our percentage, or we have increased our percentage of U.S. employees to almost 35% of that number. And so we're just working more with that remote type work and being able to work wherever you are and still be able to connect with the headquarters. Remind me what the second question was, sorry.
Just what are you doing to energize your remote workforce?
Oh, good. We do try to stay really connected. I think communication has been one of the biggest keys. And we have done a lot of email communication, all hands meetings, really trying to make sure that our employees understand what's going on and how they can take care of themselves, their families, and continue to help us and work professionally within the business. We try to have a lot of fun events. We actually just finished our International Talk Like a Pirate Day, which is one of our biggest events of the year. It's a real holiday that happens in September, so we were a little bit behind. But we did the entire thing remote. So even if there were employees in the office that were dressed up and participating in the office, the experience looked the same for every single employee wherever you were, and that's what we've been trying to do more and more of. Things that go to the homes and to their home addresses, even if they're in the office on a regular basis. I don't know if you'd add anything to that.
It's just something small, but I don't think it's actually that small. But something that the team has done is, we talk about winning together. Well, part of the ways that you win together is you have fun together. And one of my favorite examples of an event that our HR team let out was, we had this thing called NetDocuments Cribs, and everybody's working from home sort of thing. And people just shot videos, kind of telling the story about their cool digs at home. And I was shocked at the way it turned out. People were so excited. Some people, dressing up their entire family. Others turning it in, turning their home into a NetDocuments library or museum. It was a fun way to bring people together and help them feel that they're part of something bigger than just going to work.
One or two more I think we have time for.
With your winning as a team mentality, how much visibility did you give your employees into the state of the company during the COVID pandemic and kind of going forwards?
Yeah, I think that to me, maybe the most important thing that you can do with your teams, regardless of whether you're in the midst of kind of a crisis, which I view that the early stages of the pandemic as a crisis, or you're just kicking butt. Transparency is one of the most important things you can do, right? Help people understand, these are the objectives of the company, and oh, by the way, something just changed in a big way. These are how the objectives are going to change. This is what we're going to measure differently, and this is how we're progressing. We just chose to almost just kind of, maybe this is the right or wrong way to say it, but just kind of be naked about the whole situation. And with that approach, we've got a bunch of employees in the room. It's probably easier to ask them, but I think it worked.
The only thing I would add to that is that we continue to have that mentality. We want the feedback. We want to have the suggestions. We want to hear from our employees. And we get a lot of feedback, which is awesome. We look through all of it. We go through all of it. And we circle back to say, this was a great idea or a great ask, or we understand why this is something that's important to you. And we're not doing it because of this. Or we are going to do it because of this. And really trying to help them be part of the ownership of what's happening for the company.
I just have a super quick question. Mine is, you were at 35 million in 2017. Where are you today?
So the question was, we were at 35 in 2017, where we're at today. So we're just shy of 110. We'll end the year at 110. So essentially triple the company in 4 years.
One more? Maybe two if they're short.
So as you guys moved the business more from just the 200 biggest law firms to a lot of smaller businesses, I'm wondering what other structures you had to set up and what other changes you had to make in the business. Our business is the opposite, so we've got lots of SMB customers, and I'm trying to move us up market into enterprise and facing a lot of challenges around the way in which we approach customers, and I'm wondering if there's a corollary with you guys going the other way.
Yeah, that's a good question. We literally went about kind of professionalizing the organization function by function. And by professionalizing, I mean making sure that the systems were there to support it, the metrics were there to support it. We've invested a lot in FP&A resources who can partner with engineering and who can partner with customer success and each of the different functions in really understanding the metrics, kind of what success looks like, and be able to measure it along the way, and then making sure that as we put process in place, that the systems were there to just maximize our ability to consistently replicate that process. Particularly, it sounds like we're going opposite directions, but as we came down into the smaller law firms, we lived in a world where we were trying to win $400,000 deals before. And we continue to win a whole bunch of those $400,000 deals, but we win a boatload of $10,000 and $15,000 deals. And customers like that, they just have to be nurtured in different ways. They have to they have to have kind of technology that is dripping information to them along the way and helping them be successful, so that we can also do it in a profitable way, because we want to be able to take those profits and pour them back into the next product, kind of thing. So systems, processes, and really supporting people with the right, folks from, the finance team, I think are maybe the three biggest.
All right, for realsies, last question.
So going back to the early days of the company when it was first starting, when it was struggling in those days, that's kind of a terrifying spot to be. Where do we join the masses who don't make it, or do we go big? How did you give yourselves and all of the employees the confidence to keep going during that time?
So the first thing that we had to do is we had to believe in our own vision. How much is that part of you? Is this just something that you're there to make a quick money, or is there something that you want to do for the long run, knowing that the industry is going to reach a certain point, where in our case, that cloud would be the norm as opposed to the exception. So a lot of it is just believing in yourself. Do you really believe in the purity of your vision, that it is going to actually matter to the people that you're trying to target? Is it actually going to make a difference? And what is it that is really unique? If you have that type of a vision, and if you can work really, really hard, then you can withstand some of the bumps. And I wish that there was only one paycheck that we can skip. But sometimes if it is repeated over and often again, sometimes it gets to be 6, 7 skip paychecks in a year. And in order to do that, you just have to really look at yourself and it says, do we really want this? Do we really want to persist? And does it make sense? And how do you make sense? And then just empower the whole organization to believe in the vision. That's what we did. And looking at the past and looking at right now, we said, wow, we're glad that we did it.
Yeah, that's got to feel good. All right, so this will air on Silicon Slopes TV soon, which we're launching next week. But this has been a very fun and enjoyable conversation. Thank you to all three of you for being a part of it. These are some of my favorite stories, the ones that are longer, and there's ups and downs. And really appreciate you all being a part of this. Thank you.
Thanks for hosting us.